Hey everybody, Kevin here from ChangeWorks Interactive. Welcome back again. I'm really excited about today. I have a very good friend of mine, Dan Rogers. I'll read you a little bit about Dan, although he is my golf friend and I know him quite well. But Dan is Canada's corporate fitness coach. And today we're going to discuss things like motivation and communication and some practical tips to kickstart any kind of wellness journey that anybody is on. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Great. Well, let's talk about some of those things right off the hop, Dan. Maybe we'll get into, which I think is such a big factor when it comes to talking to anybody, talking to my clients, for example, as a psychotherapist. One of the things that I'm going to really focus on is motivation. For you, in what you do as a fitness coach, how do you get that with a client? How do you generate that motivation with somebody?
Good question, and it's a lot of yelling. So I'm just kidding. A lot of it is asking a lot of questions. So when you have a client individually or a small group or a team, a lot of it is asking questions to gauge where everybody's at in terms of how much of a priority the time that we have together is to them, and how much they're willing to put into it. So if I have a group fitness class, I'll ask them about how much of a priority is fitness, how much of a priority is taking care of yourself, and all these things. And then when I gauge that information, I can carry on from there. So being very curious at all times, that's really helpful for finding out where the motivations lie with individuals and with teams.
Yeah, well, you sort of do that formally, Dan. Like I know we've talked, before the podcast started today, we were kind of chatting about whether it comes in the form of an audit or a checklist. Will you kind of do that in advance with a client and try to figure out exactly, kind of where they're coming from and what they want?
I ask people if they smoke. I ask people what their top stresses are. I ask them if they've got kids, if they have a commute to work. And so we have an intake form that asks a lot of detailed questions up to where a person's comfortable answering. But you gain a really good scope of an outline of that person and what's going to be, limiting factors for them to have success with health and wellness for a client. And then for groups, it's challenging because I'll go in there and be in person and ask those questions. A little bit of a slower process to gain that information. Yeah. But with an individual, we go right to it. If you want to have change with how you're taking care of yourself, we will go right into this intake form that's very detailed and very nuanced to the things that we're going to help you have a better life. Right. And we go right to it.
Okay. Why, in your opinion, why is it so important for somebody that's, like in a work context, why is it important for somebody to feel good, to be well, to be fit, even if they're in a work context? Why is that so important?
You work 35 to 50 hours a week, depending on your industry and what you do for a living. And you have X amount of hours outside of work. That's really our life. So we hopefully have an amount of joy and purpose and experiences that were happening outside of work. So RX Recourse's value comes in acknowledging that, like many other coaches and businesses, but we want to help people work and live better. So that doesn't mean your work hours. So what we're doing in our work hours, we're trying to have you in the middle of a challenging meeting, go into it with better breathing practices. We're trying to have you recognize in your workday the things that you're really, really confident with that you bring to the table that are your intangibles and your superpowers at your job and what you do for a living. We're also trying to have you, when you put that hat down and put on your dad or mom hat, or you're taking care of your parent hat or your neighbor hat, that you're a better version of yourself. And what does that mean? So it's just being well while at work. The time that I usually have with people is so that they can take care of the other things that they have in their life outside of work. So we're looking at having ourselves be well armed to be well with all the youth that we have in our life and having good role modeling for them. And if you've got a situation with most do in corporate, a lot of unspoken conversations or unspoken experiences, taking care of older parents and being there for them and being at your best for them by taking care of yourself.
That's awesome. And what I always ask and what my clients ask me as psychotherapist is, okay, well, what's some practical things that I could put into place, like right off the hop, that's going to be helpful for me? Like you gave me some examples, but are there other things that you can do right off the bat that would lead to better wellness that are easy to do?
There's lots. So if you allow me, I'll disclose some of those. And there's lots of them that are overlapping with the things that you and I have talked about. So you put together a beautiful package that outlines great questions and great practical tips for people to get into a better mental health state and better overall health and lifestyle state. So like pulling from those and overlapping to some of those. One is you won't fix everything with a walk, but you won't make it worse. So it's a very valuable thing to have in your back pocket. It's free, it's repeatable by yourself, with others, short, long, there's benefits to all. But going for walks are very valuable tools for people who are looking for something to start with that don't want to hire a coach or do anything too detailed. A morning routine, we've talked about this at length, and it's a super valuable thing. Just assessing, not like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. Just assessing, is your morning routine working for you? Yeah. Is the time that you get up and the things that you do, are they working for you? Are you open to change? And if you are, that might be the thing that starts your day off in a better on a better foot to have a better day. So just like that type of mentality.
Yeah.
A couple other things. The news. It's always
you're
there.
not going to bring up the news, are you,
I'm
Dan?
not going to bring up what's in the news, but I'm going to bring up the impact it has on you.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily always good.
Yes.
And depending on, what news you're consuming or anything like that, but when you consume it, if the first thing you're consuming is the news in the morning and the last thing you're consuming at the end of the day is the news, there's a chance you might not be living as well as you'd like to be. That's just the reality of what you're consuming. Yeah. Same thing goes for social media. Some of the things that happen with social media. So my suggestion for people is two things. One, consume it midday, for a sliver in your day. So you are maybe up to date on things that are happening in the world that you want to be up to date on, but it's not the thing you start with or end with in your day. Number two is maybe deleting apps and going for prolonged fasted periods off of certain apps such as, Instagram and social media, things like that. If you think it's not doing you well, like if you think it's a thing that's impacting your mental health, it might be a thing that you eliminate for a period of time. So there's a couple things, there's more, but.
Okay. One of the things, like I really love your videos that you post, for example, and you're doing some crazy stuff on there. You're pushing a lot of weight. You're doing like inverted push-ups and stuff like that. Do you ever get feedback from some of your people that might respond to that and say, I can't do that. Like, this is too hard for me. Like, what kind of feedback do you get from some of that stuff?
So you want to talk fitness? I don't know if you have enough bandwidth on your video for that, because I could talk about that all day. But so in my world that I came from, it is a CrossFit background. Mm-hmm. And I ran my show in my affiliate different than most gyms and most CrossFit affiliates. We had disclosed a detailed and thought out tailored progression list. So if this is a top end high skill movement, below is the next achievable movement that you'd want to be securing with X amount of reps, and then below and below and below, not below, but just tailor, progression. Yeah. So there's progressions to everything with how you move your body in a weightlifting movement, gymnastics, and what you ask of yourself with conditioning. There's progressions and tailored things to do. So if I do that intake and a person has not been active in 5 years, their exercise prescription would be different than if somebody's already active doing A, B, C in the gym. I would just be maybe fiddling with what they're doing and how they're doing it combined. So there's always the assessment of that individual before. So yes, people will come in and made comments on it saying, you're crazy. And but the shoulder rehab things that I've posted have been very helpful because people have used them, and the stretching has been very helpful because people maybe don't know how to stretch or what to do, and it's been positive feedback.
Well, it's good modeling, right? That means a lot when I could visually see something that's appealing to me, and I say to myself, I could probably do some of those things.
Yes, and try to place it as to why we're doing it. So I'm doing this, talking about golf, I'm doing this shoulder rehab, so it's going to help with the follow through on my swing, and that repetitive motion doesn't wear my shoulder out. I'm doing this movement to help with my back health because people sit all the time. I'm doing this stretch to offset time at the desk because these are the things that get tight and maybe you need to strengthen or loosen up. It's just all like for the corporate world. So, which is predominantly there are lots of active people. There's lots of people who sit down. There's people who are stressed. Hey, here's a thing to think about when you want to get de-stressed and use this specific stretch or this breathing method, and just all the things about that for corporate to hopefully be helpful and useful online.
Maybe that's a good lead in, Dan, to my next question, which is around, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to nutrition and sort of the whole picture of wellness, there's tons of myths out there, and you must hear a bunch of them, right? What are some of the common myths that you might hear about either fitness or wellness in general, and how do you dispel those? Like how do you say no, that's not right?
Yeah.
Maybe this is the way to go.
So if you were to go online and check out what the best morning routine is, you would be doing 4 hours of journaling and eating, ostrich eggs in a cold tub. And it's just not the way for most. And it's challenging to navigate against what people are being bombarded with. Yeah. And so I'm a big advocate of you have to be open to evolving with how you navigate your health and wellness. You have to be very agile. So that's number one. So one thing and one routine does not work for everybody. So not everybody has 3 kids. Not everybody has a dog. Not everybody has a commute. So there's different timing and doses for a lot of people. So just the general overarching theme that there's just one perfect protocol that works for everybody isn't real. It doesn't work. But you have to keep reevaluating on what you're currently doing if it does work for you. So I talk about that. I did a biohacks versus basics. And a big thing for people is like people are always trying to add stuff, add in a grounding sheet, add in this nutrition, add. Well, my theory that I've talked about with people that are my peers in the coaching industry all over Ontario and Canada is like, well, maybe if we think about maybe taking things away and simplifying things, we don't always have to add that extra app to adhere to. We don't have to add that extra behavior. We can maybe take things away, peel things back, and have a simpler way of going about things. So one size fits all certainly doesn't work. That's majestic. Adding things all the time certainly doesn't work. And then the last thing is that there's this it has to be meditation, yoga, and vegetables, and you've got to be quiet. And once you're quiet, you're going to be well. And that's not the case. I'm a big advocate. I'm not saying that everybody needs this, but the opposite is true for many people who have frustrations from work, frustrations from their responsibilities. They don't need the quiet. They need action. And they need to go do stuff. And if they're doing stuff and they're busy and they sweat and they exert themselves, they then calm down and it can be settled. So that's a really good key thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And just before we got onto the podcast and we started chatting today, you were talking about, we always talk about golf, we always talk about hockey, right? And just going back to your hockey career, you're telling me about all the different coaches that you've had.
Yes.
And in a way, that's like gathering all of these multiple data points and styles and personalities that might add to the mix. Maybe just tell us about that a little bit.
I'd love to. So I've got a background in hockey. My background is that I played 5 years of junior hockey, split between OJHL and OHL. And I'm proud of that. And I got to go to Lakehead University and play hockey and then some time elsewhere. But the main part of it was those 9 years where I had 10 different coaches. So 9 years, 10 coaches, where you really should only have 2. A junior hockey coach, maybe 1 or 2, and then your university coach.
So you're saying you're a troublemaker.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with me. I only got traded once. So, but the thought there with the different coaches was, yes, there were styles. So there was the emphasis of what that coach was putting out to the team. So maybe it was more an emotional leader, and they were always looking for ways to get their team to get charged up, and it was less X's and O's about structure and systems, and it was more about getting guys amped up. Some guys had no ability to motivate guys in terms of emotionally, and they were all fixated on X's and O's and video review and be here at this time and do this and make this play. And so I learned from those, and I learned from people who didn't do either of those, and I didn't want to be those. So I learned to not do that. Yeah. So I learned to be pragmatic with how I coach. And I got into coaching because I had such good influences at a younger age and through junior and university, because I was like, hey, you could be the conscious coach where you can be there's different types of people you're going to coach. You can help them, but just not the exact same for every person. So I've learned that. And from that, and from living in 25 different homes because of hockey and my parents moved around, I'm okay with change. And it's been a thing that I try to get people comfortable with. It happens, and it's a great thing. It's good for growth, and to not be scared of it. It's actually a beautiful thing that's necessary for being a better version of yourself. And so because of the hockey career and my living history, I've just I feel comfortable in that situation.
Very good. Very good. Maybe the thing we close with today, Dan, is just if people want to get in touch with you, whether that's an individual, whether that's corporation, what's the best way to go about doing that?
LinkedIn is it. I live on LinkedIn, and I'm always on LinkedIn in terms of send me a message, make a comment, I will respond. I'm always on it. My email is an easy way to go about it too. danrogers@rxrecourse.com. And those are the two easiest ways. I'm one of the best people in terms of getting back to you on certain things and inquiries. And those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Dan, thanks for joining us today. That was a wealth of information. You can check out Dan on LinkedIn, as mentioned. Thank you very much for following ChangeWorks Interactive, and make sure you follow us.